Are we live? Good morning, everybody, or wherever you are, good evening. It's Siddhi Sunday, and my name is Tiffany Toda, and I'm a marriage and family therapist, and you will find me here every Sunday talking about all Middle Eastern culture and emotional health and wellness issues. And we're starting a little early, so my assistant Mita and I can get started and to give people an opportunity to join. And let's see, got to invite. And today we welcome everybody that's joining. Today is Siddhi Sunday. Hi, Mita.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good, good. All right. Can you see me and hear me okay? Hey, Canada. Carwan, good to see you. Canada's in the house. I love this. All right, but we're going to give folks a few minutes to hop on because let's see, I think it's almost 10 o'clock Pacific time. I'm here live from Los Angeles, California. Mita, did you want to introduce yourself? So for new followers or people that are just hopping on so they know who you are.
I'm Mira. I'm Tiffany's assistant, and we are talking about a new topic every Sunday and Wednesday. And Tiffany's building this amazing community, and
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to be with you today.
Mita's amazing. She literally keeps me grounded and keeps this platform going. So for you guys, just know Mita handles all of the back end. So today, for those of you that are just joining in, my name is Tiffany Tota. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm a Palestinian American, and I've been in the field of mental health for, about 25 years now. I work primarily with individuals from Middle Eastern communities, which from all over, from the US, different Arab countries. So here we are. So for those joining in that have been here before, hi, you guys. Good to see you again. And for those those who are new, welcome. We've got both my parents are Palestinian. I am first generation American. Yes, both my parents are Palestinian. All right, welcome everybody. Why don't you let us know where you're coming from? I love seeing where followers are coming in from, where our community is. So we know Canada's in the house. Let's see, Ramallah. So my family is from Ramallah. All right, let's see, Texas. Oh, hey, Juju the cat. Good to see you again. Let's see. Oh, Kenya, welcome, welcome. Uh-oh, Michigan, love that, Kalawati Beauty. Oh, UAE, Ahmad, good to see you. Georgia, I love this. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so today, let's see, some ground rules on the lives, because as Arab or whoever's on here, sometimes we forget our manners. Any negative comments, anything that's rude, anything that's not helpful, meet us here. You will just immediately be deleted and blocked because we can. This is a community where we want everybody to be healthy and whole and seen. And many times on the internet, people like to come in and, be negative. Right, Mita? So I
Right.
wouldn't test
And you're
it because you're out. Okay. I wish it could be that easy in our communities just to get negative people out. Okay. So also,
and what doesn't apply, let it fly, right?
yes, what doesn't apply, let it fly. So today I'm going to be talking about family dynamics. Now, here in this TikTok, social media, everybody wants fast, quick tips. You have a therapist for 1 hour of your undivided attention. So questions, I'm here to support you in understanding family dynamics within our Middle Eastern culture. Now, if you could tolerate the distress, because some of you may get really activated by talking about our families, you may have some trauma as a result of your families. If you could just hang in there in the safety of your home and breathe and really gain some self-awareness and understanding, if you truly want to move through some of these issues and have an opportunity to learn and grow, You can do that here. But you have to really stay present to what's coming up for you. And family dynamics, a lot of times when we talk about it, let's see, is it 10 o'clock? Oh, it's 10:02. Let's get started. So let me first by saying there is no perfect family. Every family comes with its issues and for a variety of reasons. Some families may be really good at hiding their dysfunction. Now, we generally come from a culture where we don't allow anybody outside the immediate family know if we have family members that are struggling, or if the family is struggling. We keep that on lockdown. Is that true for many of you who are listening to this? Mira, is that true in your experience?
Of course.
Right? We have to have the veil and the mask. Kushi tamam. Everything is perfect. And so when we start to talk about our thank you, Kelawati Beauty. Yeah, right? Okay. Thank you for, the more you guys chime in, the better it is for me, because I love hearing from you guys. Now, whenever we talk about our families, sometimes a lot of shame and guilt can come in because we are not honoring them. Now, that's a value within our culture. Now, I'm here to let you guys know we can honor them and recognize the beautiful things that they've done for us, and we can acknowledge the harm that may have been done to us. Both can be true. So many times when I have people, but Tiffany, don't judge my family. I said, I have one too. There's no judgment here at all. Now, every time I prepare for these lives, family dynamics within our Middle Eastern culture, it is very hard for me, I'll be honest, when I prepare these lives, because we come from a very rich culture, a very diverse culture. And so what I'm trying to do is give you a general overview of family dynamics, okay? And my hope is that we can just talk first, and I hope you guys feel comfortable to share. What are some of the challenges you yourself face with family dynamics in your family? Is it sibling rivalry? Is there maybe substance abuse or addiction in your family? Communication issues? If anyone feels like they're feeling comfortable to share, what are some family dynamics that we struggle with in Middle Eastern cultures? Oh, Stephanie, boundaries. Yes, boundaries is a big one. We have to be very careful with boundaries in our culture. I'll talk about that a little later. Anybody else? This week, the reason why, enmeshment, Tammy, thank you. I will talk about enmeshment within our cultural context, because as a Western therapist, when I talk to a American about enmeshment, right, it takes on a whole different form. I'm jumping ahead, but yes, in our Middle Eastern culture, I don't pathologize enmeshment. Let's see, the abuser, it's going so fast. Can you? Screaming and yelling is normal. Oh my gosh. Yes, that can be that's communication. That's communication. Mira, any other comments I'm missing as people are joining the live? Let's see.
Don't talk things out. They ignore issues.
I will talk about that. Yes. Oh, Matt had a question. I'm going to address what enmeshment means. Yes. Oh, the lack of respectful communication is wild. And yes, the restriction of women's rights at times. I think, Serene, you said that. Yes, that can happen. I won't be addressing that specifically, but yes. All right. Anything else? Welcome. What things are funny. Lack of privacy always in your business. Thank you, Juju the cat. Yes, absolutely. All right, let's get started. Now, we know within Middle Eastern families, there's a strong emphasis on the extended family. So a lot of times it's not your immediate family. It's your tete and your jiddo and your aunties and your ammos and your cousins. And then you have the in-laws of your cousins, right? So many times we have this very extended people who lack boundaries, privacy, right? So it's not just you, your mom, your dad, and your siblings. It's an entire community. Now, it's important to understand you may have an okay relationship with your immediate family, yet some of the dynamics of the extended family may cause a lot of significant stress. And it may cause a lot of significant distress on your mother and your father. And then, of course, that may have an implication on you. So it's going to be important when you're assessing your own, how does your immediate family affect you? How may the extended family impact you? Okay? So that's something for you to pay attention to for yourself. We also come from, and I think somebody said this about women's rights, and I get a lot of flack, West versus East and all this nonsense. That's not what I'm doing here. It's about self-awareness. Because guess what? A lot of times what happens in your respective countries also happens here in the United States. So it's not an East versus West thing. It's a family dynamic issue in how open or closed the family system is. But I'll get to that in a minute. But we do know within our Middle Eastern culture that we do have patriarchal structures where the father holds the primary authority. This does not negate the role of the nurturing mother. It does not negate the role of the mom. Let me repeat that. It does not negate the role of the mother, okay? This patriarchal structure, depending on the health and the emotional wellness of the father, may cause significant distress within the family system. Okay? Is that make sense? Everybody clear? Mira?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we also have another family dynamic that's important for us to understand is our respect for elders. Now, for those that have been harmed by the elders in your family or in your community, this makes it very problematic because the family may not address your concerns due to we must respect our elders, so they could treat you crappy, they could hurt you, in some cases abuse you, both physically, emotionally, and in some cases sexually. And I'm sorry if that triggers some people, but I need to say this, that the elders will still be heralded even though they're causing harm. Now, I can't even express to you how damaging that could be to your emotional health and well-being. We also come from a culture where there's a strong emphasis on honor and loyalty. So if you go outside of that cultural norms and expectations, well, that could cause a lot of problems for you. Which leads me to talk about these family systems. Let's see, there's a lot of comments coming in. Mira, can you help me with the comments? Let's see.
Said that children's failure or success are a reflection on the family.
Oh, yeah. And they keep moving the goalpost. I talk about that all the time. But yes, it's contingent upon the children molding themselves to what the family needs them to be. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so when you think about your own family, okay, so I want everybody to take a minute, take a deep breath, reflect. Okay, my family, is it an open system or a rigid, closed system? And let me explain. A rigid family system has strict rules, inflexible family roles, and a lack of adaptability, meaning everything is how it needs to be according usually to the father. Okay. Now, this type of family system often prioritizes control, authority, and order over emotional expression and individual needs. Now, we come from a collective culture where individual needs typically are not taken into account. In a rigid family system, it is almost as if your needs do not exist. So now think about for you and your family. It also uses punitive discipline. So that could be corporal punishment, being hit, harsh consequences for breaking the rules, and often uses fear and shame to enforce compliance. Now, within these rigid family systems, you have to remember there are usually high levels of stress and anxiety. Okay? You also may feel pressure to conform. And I think many of us in our Middle Eastern culture, within this Middle Eastern culture, may feel this pressure to conform or to follow cultural norms and expectations. That's part of our belonging. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if it's imbalanced or if it's taken in these family situations, in these rigid systems, it could lead to anxiety, resentment, and secretive behavior. And you may hide a lot of what you're doing in these family systems. So you need to take a look at if you are in this type of rigid family system, take a deep breath and ask yourself the implications upon you. Now, how many of you, if you can do a thumbs up or some kind of an emoji to let us know, how many of you came from a rigid family system? How many? I know, and it could be different generationally. I know I came from a rigid family system that moved towards openness because of the work that I did with them, right? We moved towards more openness. So it's not to say it's always rigid or open. Let's see, in the beginning it was rigid, but they loosen up with younger siblings. Yes, thank you, Kalawati Beauty. I really appreciate that. That usually by the younger siblings, they get tired. I was the oldest. So usually we're the experimental children, the oldest ones. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Noor. Okay. So people are saying, yeah, we come from a family. So many of us come from a rigid family system. Now, on the contrary to a rigid family system, which is my hope for many of the younger generation, my hope is that the younger generation of parents can really do more to be more of an open family system. And that's being more flexible, open communication, where your kids feel safe to share their feelings, where you may adapt to the changes in the family, that you could stay present to your children to help them foster independence and have autonomy to be who they are. Whether it's created, it may be outside of what you expected. But you're present to them and you're saying, I see you and I'm okay with that. And I'm going to adapt what I think you should be to honor who you are. That's really my hope for the younger generation. And to foster well-being, that if you see issues within your child, any emotional issues, that you will address them sooner than later. Whereas many older generation or a rigid family system, they don't address it at all. And the child typically suffers, and it usually gets worse as the child becomes an adult. What I have found with many of the younger generation, so thank you to the younger generation. I applaud you, because what I'm seeing is the parents who are more open and their children, what's interesting is the children tend to grow closer to the culture instead of shoving the culture down the child's throat, which sometimes there may be a repelling. And that can cause a lot of distress because you love the culture, but you also are pushing against it because it suffocates you. So the more open the parent is with the child, the more they will be able to say, look at the beauty of the culture versus focusing on the more difficult challenges of the culture. How many of you, if you're young parents, are creating an open family system or have an open family system? I'm just curious. So a few people chimed in. They come from rigid. Let's talk about some of the aspects of an open family system. Anybody want to share? If you're doing better for the younger generation, I'd love to hear from you, because it truly is, in order for us to move forward as a culture, we need to address these emotional health and wellness issues so that we can be better for the next generation. Let's see, Kalawati Beauty. Yes, I'm very open with culture and religion. Thank you so much for that. Yes, because in my work, many times when with Arab families, sometimes it's too rigid. and we can't talk about these things. All right, let's see. I just lost my train of thought. All right, let's go to enmeshment. Somebody asked a question about that. Now, Arab families are enmeshed. So what does that mean? It means an over-involvement in family members into everything the individual may be doing. Have you guys ever seen that meme? It's hilarious, where Arabi kid is like asking a question and there's like a line of people whose opinion there is. It's like 50, 60 people on whatever that one decision is. How many of you come from a family where that over involvement of family into who you marry, what you study, where you live? Anybody? Where everybody has an opinion about what you're doing in your life? So now in American culture, enmeshment is seen as pathological. So they see enmeshment as, oh no, it's all about individuality. And I tell Western therapists, I said, hey, if you're working with Middle Eastern people, that's not going to fly. You know why? Because of our collective culture, it is very normal for us to be enmeshed with each other because we care about each other. We love each other. We want to see everybody in our family succeed. But where that becomes problematic is when you don't know where you begin and where they end. That's when it becomes problematic. Okay. Does that make sense? So you have to remember within our cultural context, families don't see them getting involved in every aspect of your life. They don't see that as a problem because many times they don't honor your individualism. Yes, they are very blurred lines, but this is where, how do you take accountability and responsibility for you to go, where do I draw those lines for myself? How do I not blur those lines for me? Because that will throw you into a spin, because you may spin as a result of everybody trying to make a decision for you, getting involved, that you, again, I did a whole video on indecisiveness, that may be as a result of that because everybody has an opinion. Any questions on enmeshment? Now, when your entire life is for your family at the expense of yourself, let's see, Stephanie says, I think there's a difference between collective support and enmeshment. Yes. However, in our culture, that's where those blurred lines come. Because how would you make that distinction? Unless you make that distinction for you. All right. Now, there's another piece to Arab families outside of enmeshment that moves to differentiation of self. Now, I know I'm using psychology words. Differentiation of self. It's our ability to separate our emotions from the family's emotional climate. So how many of you, if there's family stressors, that your life could be going fine, yet if the family's in distress, you are also in distress? How many of you have had that experience? Mira, you're shaking your head. Yeah? Tell me.
Because it's very relatable. I used to be like this all the time, especially in my teenage years. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but I was so affected by everything that happens around me. Like I could never have fun because I would always care what other people are feeling. And if they're in stress, I'm in stress too.
That's right. Because of our collective culture, we're co-regulating. So who said that never happens? To who? Never happens? Are you being facetious? Well, you know what? Feel very lucky if that never happens in your family. But in many Middle Eastern families, because we are a part of this collective unit, right? As we are a part of this collective unit, again, your individuality may get skewed. Or you may be, let's see, for me this week, as an example, my life is cruising along fine. That's why I did this topic this week. I'm cruising along fine. My daughter and I were living happy, healthy lives, but we have this stressor in our family caring for our elderly father. Now, anybody that has a elder who is ill and has complicated health issues, that can cause a lot of stress within a family, a lot of stress. Now, it's as if you're feeling your mother's emotions in your body. I'm feeling what's happening. And so how do I separate myself so I could stay as emotionally regulated as possible so I could be a support to the family? Now, what happens is if we're matching that stress, that's where the screaming, the yelling, the siyah, all this stuff that happens because you cannot separate yourself from them. So the more emotionally regulated, the more you can have this differentiation of your own feelings, the more you will be able to help support the family. But everyone is matching everybody's energy, and that typically does not do well for decreasing stress levels. Right? Okay, now, any question? Let's see, let's take a look. What happened? My dad started a secret family while still married to my mom and has never apologized. Yeah, Lily, I'm so sorry that happened. And thank you for having the courage to share that. And how do we as families deal with that? Because there's such a rupture in the family. And depending on how open or closed the family system is, if it's open, family members can talk about the hurt. They could talk about the pain in that. But if it's rigid and it's shut down, everybody just walks around like, yay, everything is fine, pretending you don't have siblings somewhere else in the world, or down the street. And that could be crazy making for someone who's aware, who's trying to heal. Okay. Now, we always talk about, people always say, Tiffany, how do I move through Arab guilt and shame? Because this Arab guilt and shame may never allow us to really feel the feelings that we have towards our families. Now, I know this is going to be really, really hard. It wasn't until I was a young adult where I said to myself with my therapist, I hate my father. I hate my father. Now, if you're getting triggered, I get it. I'm 30 years into my healing journey, but that was the beginning where I was able to acknowledge my feelings, and then the healing began for me. So it's how do you move to own your feelings? And once you can own them, you got to feel it to heal it. Then you could move towards healing the rupture, which I've been able to do, but it took 35 years. So if you think there's a quick fix to any of this, there's no quick fix. But if you can't acknowledge the harm that was done to you because of the guilt and shame, or you say to yourself, Malash, they did what they could. They did everything for me. I have to focus on the positive of what they did. That's fine. You could do that later. But before that, it's acknowledging what the harm was done. Doesn't mean they didn't do right by you or didn't do okay by you. Do you guys hear that? If you keep denying the harm that was done to you, it continues to perpetuate this family dynamic and this lack of differentiation of self. Is it okay to never forgive them? Kalawati Beauty, I love that question. Now, you ask some other therapists, they believe in forgiveness. Now, I've worked long enough to know there are some acts that are so heinous, so hideous, so horrible that with my clients, I always say there's some acts you don't need to forgive. However, you can forgive within yourself the impact that this had on you. You could forgive yourself for allowing what was done to you to keep you from your full self. But I never blame people that have been traumatized with this, oh, you must forgive in order to heal. I don't buy that. I've worked with plenty of trauma victims, and from some of the stories I've heard, which will make your head spin, you'll understand what I'm saying. So no, you don't need to forgive to heal, but you need to forgive those parts of you within you that are still being controlled and being harmed by the past. So let's see. Giving myself permission to not forgive liberated me. Thank you, Stephanie. Absolutely. Absolutely. And only each person, and maybe forgiveness is important to you, and that's fine too. But working with as many trauma victims, I don't do the forgiveness thing. All right. Now let's talk about another family dynamic. And this is a big one, and it's called triangulation. Now, this is where the mother or the father will bring the child into their issues to carry the emotional burden to reduce the stress that's in the marriage. So go talk to your mother, go talk to your father, go talk to your brother or sister. So those two people may have a problem, but they're going to rope you into that dynamic to deflect from what they need to do. Let's see, Steph, that was my whole childhood. I was used as a tool. Yes, absolutely. Strawberry croissant, can you please read my comment? Mira, I can't see her comment or their comment. I'm sorry.
How should I navigate my best friend being friends with someone who deeply hurt me? I feel so uneasy.
Oh gosh. That can I pin that because I definitely want to finish talking about triangulation, but let's pin that. And maybe we can add that for Wadeh Wednesday.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Strawberry croissant, I got you, but maybe not today. Okay. So this is where instead of talking to the person, it's in themselves, you're going to bring in another family member. This happens a lot. This is a dysfunctional family behavior oftentimes. However, in Arab families, yes, it can be very dysfunctional, but sometimes the sister, because of our patriarchal beliefs, they may ask the brother to soften Baba or to soften Mama, to come in to help allow or to bring out more openness to a communication that they may hear it differently from a brother or an older sister than from you. That's also triangulation. So this is where within our family structures as Middle Eastern people, sometimes we will do that. Where it becomes dysfunctional is when you start to own their emotional baggage and you try and heal what's going on between your parents. Okay. Or sometimes another example would be the mother will talk to the father on behalf of the son because maybe the mother has more influence. Again, that's triangulation within our cultural context. This is what I tell Western therapists. That's okay. Like sometimes we need to triangulate to help move us from a rigid family system to a more open family system. Can you guys see how within our cultural context, yes, it could be problematic, but yet in some cases it could be adaptable. Any questions so far on triangulation, differentiation of self, anything? Okay. Any questions? Mira, how are we doing on the comments? Welcome, everybody. Oh, I'm loving this. That can also create vulnerabilities. Yes, very much so. Very much so. All right. Let's go to the next one. A big one, the family projection process. Now, think about your family as I start to talk about this. This is where the parents pass on emotional issues to their children. This is different than generational trauma. If the mother is depressed, the child may exhibit symptoms of depression. If there is a highly anxious father, the child may inadvertently adopt anxious behaviors. And this is where I tell everybody, the more self-awareness you have, so if you want to have kids in the future, or if you have children, the more self-awareness you have, the more healing you can engage in for yourself, the less likely you will project onto your children your emotional issues. Now, if you are in a partnership, you may project onto your partner your family's emotional issues. And I always say this is a total setup for your partner. This is about the more clear you can get on your issues, the more clear they can get on their issues, the better you can foster communication. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? How are we doing? Somebody wrote something. Mehdi wrote something in Arabi. Mira, can you see if it's appropriate? Can you see what it was, what he
Yeah,
said?
yeah. It's just good evening. It's like hi.
Oh, hi, Mehdi. All right. All right. Here we go. This is very important because you guys keep wanting me to talk about narcissistic families or narcissistic parents. I'm going to do that at a later time. But where within many Arab families, there's a concept called disengagement. Well, actually, this is a global psychological term called disengagement. However, this is where there's excessive emotional distance. We may have close proximity to each other. We are a community together, right? Now, what happens? When we're spending time together, but it's very surfacey. Are we talking about anything deep or real or connected? More often than not, in a rigid family system, you're not. If anything, if you even engage emotionally, what do they do? What do they do, Mira? If you try and say, hey, I have this problem, or I want to talk to you about an issue, what do Arab families usually do?
No, there's no issue. You're okay. You're making a big deal.
That's right. They minimize, they invalidate, they avoid it. Sometimes, have you ever talked to your parent? You go, you know, Mama, I've been feeling this way. She completely ignores you and she goes, here, Habibti, here's some food. Now that's their love language, but you're like, I don't want food. I need you to talk to me about what happened. And it's just like they glaze over, they move on. Here's some mahshi and you'll be better. And so I know we're making light of it. I know there's a lot of jokes and we have these things on social media. However, this excessive emotional distance, think about your own relationships. It creates low self-esteem. You may feel unworthy of love and support. This typically shows up. I see this a lot with Arab women where they will get involved with narcissistic men because they are seeking this emotional connection. But because of this disengagement and excessive emotional distance in their families, they usually pick the partner that's the most empty emotionally. At least at the beginning, they love bomb you, and then later they're completely emotionally inept. And it typically comes from these family system where there's disengagement. Because, or maybe any person that gives you attention or love, you may glom onto them. And this is where it's this excessive neediness, and then people run from you because they're like, it's too much. That also may be a consequence of this disengagement. It also causes, and this, I see this a lot in general, more with Arab men, of this emotional suppression. That this bottled up feelings or emotions or difficulty expressing them. It happens in both genders, you guys. Hello, before I get hate comments. But this is where I want to give a shout out to Arab men, because we don't talk enough about the pressures that they are under and this emotional suppression, that they have this difficulty expressing emotion because it may be seen as weak. Now, as we know, by bottling up our emotions and this emotional suppression, what happens? Anxiety, depression, it could lead to psychosis, addiction. It could lead to all kinds of things. Because when there is a lack of emotional support and you have nobody to go to talk about these things, typically, this is that mind-body connection. It manifests what I've seen in illness. And you can see Dr. Gabor Mate's work on the stress disorder and how it impacts the body. All right, let's look at the comments. Kayan, I hope I said your name correctly. Yes, Arab men are not connected with their emotions. Well, most of us aren't connected to our emotions, but yes, I wanted to give a shout out to Arab men because I think that I'm a firm believer in men's mental health. And I think we have moved so far on this side of vilifying men that we're not looking at what are the systems that are contributing to that. and boys don't cry and all these types of things. I think we're better in allowing men to have, or having young boys have their emotion. All right. Okay, disengagement. So when we have emotional distance within our families, what happens? You may have difficulty trusting other people. You may struggle from forming close relationships outside of the family. Nobody said, what did he say or she say? F emotions. Oh no, I feel really bad. I feel bad for you, because our emotions are a very good indicator of where we need to heal. And I know that when we have that anger of like, fuck emotions, yeah, I'll say it. F emotions, it's because of this disengagement. You're proving what I'm saying. When you come from Middle Eastern families where they constantly said to you, fuck your emotions, now you're starting to negate that for yourself. Excuse my language. Okay? I know, not nice language, but sometimes we have to, express ourselves, because that was a very angry comment. I don't like using my emotions. I know. And sometimes that's because you don't have emotional regulation skills. Okay. Well, it's a balance between your mind and your emotions. Let's keep going. When there's emotional distance, how many of you had siblings, or maybe this is you, where there's acting out behavior or rebellion? Where are my rebellious people? Where are you? Those of you that when you had to suppress your emotions so much that you would act out to try and get credit. Let's see. Is that Neural Fashion Psychologist? Yeah, that's right. All the time. Thank you, Kalawati Beauty. Ahmad, I love it. Yeah. And you act out because there's so much emotional frustration. And so, that's where the yelling, the screaming, the expressed anger may be attributed to this disengagement. I know let's see, Shayom said, yeah, I struggle with that too. Being rebellious in your adolescent years. Oh yeah. My poor parents, I feel bad for them. Yeah, I feel bad for the parents when you're rebelling, because they don't understand. I'm not excusing their closed family system, but they didn't have the skills. They didn't know, and they just don't understand like what to do with you. And the more they didn't understand what to do with you, the more you probably rebelled and acted out. And that's very adaptive in a lot of ways. It was your survival. What I'm trying to suggest and create more self-awareness is for you to be able to not have to fight and rebel. I was a fighter my whole life. Probably just until about a few years ago, I stopped fighting with these people and found acceptance. But again, that takes a lot of self-awareness and work. Okay. How many of you, now also this emotional distance creates a sibling rivalry or sibling competition. How many of you that the siblings may see themselves as competitors versus allies? How many of you have that in your families? Sibling rivalry or sibling competition? Because as siblings, you want to be able to turn to each other for emotional support. But in these disengaged family systems, we don't turn to our siblings, which they should be the very people you can turn to and for practical help in adulthood. But many times in these disengaged families, they create this competition. How many of you have sibling rivalry or sibling competition? Anybody? I'm tired of hearing myself talk. I would love to hear from you guys.
I feel like every Arab family has this common problem because does it come from comparison too?
Yes. So it can come from comparison. It can come from favorites. So now I'm going to talk about family roles. So this may highlight the dynamic in how that happens. Okay. So not competition, but always thinking they are superior in every aspect. Ahmad, okay, you may have the golden child in your family. So I will talk about that role for sure. Anybody else? Yes, the superiority. Anybody else? Okay, let's talk about family roles. Now, many of us take on a particular family role. So as I'm talking about these descriptions, I want you to think about yourself and be honest with yourself. Like really be honest and take accountability. My hope is that when you can create more awareness on what role you take on, You may adopt certain patterns of behavior. So you know your role in the family is this. You may automatically engage in the behavior because that's your role. Now, it may help maintain balance and function or dysfunction depending on the role that you have within your family. Now, let's take a look. Here are some types. Now, with this said, each family is very unique and roles may change over time depending on the circumstances. But let's take a look. Where are my scapegoats or my black sheeps? Usually anybody engaging in therapy or anybody going against cultural norms, you are the scapegoat or the black sheep. You are the disturber in your family system. Where are my black sheeps? Where are they? They're what we can't be the only ones, Mira.
We have Kayan, we
Okay,
have Karamati Beauty, Inji.
I love it. I love it. Nobody, yes, I love it because the golden child typically, and we'll talk about that. The black sheep, you may be seen as the rebel, the troublemaker. And this may be true from a very young age. You may go against the cultural norms and expectations. In my experience, the scapegoat usually has more emotional intelligence. They're the one that has a deeper awareness of family dynamics, usually as a child. And I know I could speak for myself. When I was a young kid, I was able to peep all the dynamics in the family. And even as a kid, even though I didn't have a lot of knowledge, I was like, ooh, what is happening over here? And I would speak to it. And my aunties would go, yay, yeah, hey, listen, hey, بتحكي too much. ليش هي هيك? And it was this constant judgment. And I was just a kid curious about why they did certain things or why they said certain things. And let's see, Kalawati, I'm a good kid. I just don't buy into what Khaltos think. That's right. I'm the youngest. They said we were the most stubborn, but I proved that I give my family a great life. Yeah. Again, take a look at this role, but usually the scapegoat from a young age, you're aware of these family dynamics and you may have spoken upon them. You may have been criticized, punished, judged, shamed for all these things. So this is where you may invalidate yourself as you've gotten older. As an adult, you may have adopted this family. I'm the black sheep and I'm going to constantly go against these norms because that's what they're used to. But sometimes that's not helpful for you. So this is about doing things mindfully and being aware that you may say, I'm not being the scapegoat for this family. I'm going to hold a boundary with you to say, I'm not going to be your punching bag because you guys lack emotional intelligence. Now, I don't suggest you say that to them, but say it within yourself. Say it within, like, I'm not going to do this with them anymore. I'm not going to play this game of me being the problem. Because more often than not, unless you're engaging in dysfunctional behaviors, more often than not, you're not the problem. They just can't tolerate you doing different or going outside the norm. Now, on the contrary, you have the hero, the crowned prince, el-Rais, the princess within the family. They could do no wrong. Now, I know there's a lot of jokes around the eldest son, the namesake, the legacy, right? Or the sister who she's shufu mahlaha, how good she is. Look at everything she does, right? These are the ones who make the family look good. Okay. Now, usually the hero or the golden child is responsible for, right? The king. I know my family, I don't know. I don't even think my family even knows I really do this online. So if they knew, they would, but you know, we have names for the first sons, right? And, but there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Sorry, I digress. So in Adam families, there may be multiple families who may be high achieving, right? So this is where the hero, it's not just one person. Maybe you are high achieving. Everybody's accomplishing everything. Everyone's moving forward. But the golden child is the person that the family focuses on. They're the favored. right? I said the glorious prince or princess. So you may be working your butt off trying to prove to these people, look what I'm doing, but they don't even care about what you're doing. Well, they're like, okay, tayyib mnih, but they're going to look to the gold, but look at your brother or look at your sister. And this is where other family members' achievements may not be regarded or they will be dismissed. So you need to ask yourself, if you have a sibling who's the golden child, or if you are the golden child and your siblings don't particularly care for you, or if they're in competition with you, or if they resent you, talk to them about it. Because you may be inadvertently creating this dynamic with them by, I think somebody said earlier that, they're superior. You may act superior and your siblings will find it annoying. The golden child could be holden just because of gender. If I understood that correctly, are you saying it's usually the boy? I'm not sure what that means, Angdima. I'm sorry. I pass this phrase now. I'm the crazy one. I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, I get it. But how do you not adopt that persona? Because you may adopt that persona and start acting crazy. And that may become problematic for you in your life. So this is where I say we got to be really, really careful. Now, for the golden child or the hero, we cannot forget that there are pressures that come with that. They can quickly fall from grace if they stop doing what they're doing. So they may feel pressured to stay in the job. And if they wanted to move out of that job or divorce or do anything, if the golden child moves outside of the heralded, coveted role, that could feel very, very trapped. They could feel very trapped and stay stuck. And as a child, they're seeking constant validation as well. All right. And they may take on narcissistic qualities. So you may have a brother or sister who become narcissistic as a result of they can't do no wrong. So there's no accountability. There's no responsibility. They're running amok, treating everybody horribly or not doing anything. And they're like, oh, but he's the golden child. Well, yeah, they will start to adapt a pattern of behavior that's like, I could do no wrong. And that could be not great for the rest of the emotional family. Okay, how are we doing? Where are my heroes at? Are there any golden children? Any golden child? The heroes that want to chime in? Sorry, I have my nose running.
We have Hannah. She said, as I got older, I realized that I was doing these high achievements to please my parents. They were not satisfied when I stopped doing these things anymore.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Yeah, let's see. Hello. When are we discussing narcissistic family members? Miro, that's coming soon in a few weeks because it's such an involved topic. I don't want to rush it, but I will talk about how the narcissistic traits can come from father to son because of this golden child family role. Now, this is a very intense role. And I think that we don't talk about it enough, is the lost child. Now, for those of you that may be quiet or withdrawn, you're the one who avoids conflicts. You stay unnoticed to the degree that you could stay unnoticed in an Arab family. You also may cope with escaping with books, your studies, video games, solitude. Now, they may judge you for being too quiet. You may be the lost child in the corner, forgotten. And they will label you. Sometimes I hear this a lot, akil or akle, or in actuality, you may have significant feelings and thoughts. Now, the lost child as well, and now addiction, substance abuse. The hero can develop substance abuse issues. The scapegoat or the black sheep can have substance abuse issues. The lost child may also cope with drugs and alcohol. Now, I know in our culture, we don't like to talk about substance use, but that may be a part of how we will cope with these family roles. Somebody asked a question, Mira, about, it was going too fast. Okay, so now, Introvert versus the lost child. Now, the lost child may very well have extroverted traits. They're not necessarily an introvert. They just prefer to stay under the radar, because if the family system is so distressful and if it's so intense, they may be the one hiding in the corner. And hey, I always say that might be okay. In fact, I'm a little jealous of the lost child because the family typically just leaves them alone. And in Arab families where there's so much intensity, sometimes being the lost child may be okay. But for you, it's how do you being ignored, you being you putting yourself in a corner, how does that impact your relationships? Do you open yourself up to friendships? Are you open to expressing your feelings? Okay. Any lost children here? Anybody who in your family system, you just hide in a corner and you stay under the radar? Do you see any of that here? Fano M, Shayom, yeah, the lost children, absolutely. And so you need to ask yourself, okay, this may be okay for me in my dysfunctional family. However, how does that impact me in my own relationships? Okay. Melissa, yes, I avoid all azumes. Well, my hope is that we try not to avoid family gatherings, that we can still come together in health and wellness and love and compassion. And so that we're not so isolated. But I get it. If you don't want to go to an azume, who am I to say? I've avoided plenty in my own life. All right. I know there's plenty of you in here for this one. The caretaker, the enabler. Many of us have mothers who were the caretaker. That's their role. They're nurturing. They are the glue many times in the family. They try to keep the peace, usually at the cost of their own emotional health and well-being. Okay. Now they may do everything for everyone to make everyone happy and not to get anybody upset. They take on way too much responsibility. They're anticipating everybody's needs. Now, can I tell you guys an interesting thought? Don't you think that the caretaker would have the most respect? What do you guys think? Do you think the caretaker would have the most respect? The enabler? No, they should, but they're the ones that are treated more poorly. Usually, they're the least respected, and yet they're seeking something from the family system. The more they caretake, the more they're trying to heal a family system that's not their responsibility to heal. And so if you're the caretaker in your family, proceed with caution. This is where having boundaries is going to be so important for you, because the more you do and the more you think you're doing to help the family, usually that creates more stuckness and nobody takes accountability for what they need to take accountability for. Now, for our Arab moms, I have so much empathy for them, because if they have a dysfunctional husband and they're trying to keep it all together for everyone, that is a horrible role to be in a culture that typically looks down, at least in the older generation, divorce, and the mothers can't win for losing. They're trying to keep the peace, keep everybody together, keep all the secrets, keep everything going. And yet everybody will blame the mom for everything. And this is where people need to take accountability and responsibility for themselves, that it's not always on the mom. She could be as dysfunctional as she is. Yet if you really think about what she has to go through, and in some cases men, that is horrible. It is a horrible place to be within our culture. All right. Now, when it comes to family addiction and when it comes to mental health issues, the caretaker and the enabler may not understand that by covering up for the alcoholic or the drug addict or hiding the mental health issue, this puts their loved one more at risk. And I will have another live that talks about how to help support ARAB families when they have a family member who's struggling with an addiction. That's a whole other topic. But usually what happens is the caretaker, the enabler, will try and hide and keep it going until they can't anymore, because the addiction will flare, the mental health issues will be, and then they're overwhelmed. Okay, we've got a couple more roles. Anybody relating to their role and kind of thinking about the role that they play? Let's talk about the mascot, the clown. You're the person in your family who uses humor to lighten up the intensity. I know I've taken on that role. There could be lots of intensity going on in a discussion, and I will lighten it up by doing something silly, or I will divert the attention. If my parents are having a little bit of an argument, I'll say, hey, look at me. I'm the clown. And then it will take their attention off of what's going on between them. And then sometimes, depending on your personality, to be really funny. And this is usually hiding the pain of what's going on in the family system. Now, while this can be healthy, if you are the mascot or the clown in your family who's constantly trying to lighten things up, it may have you avoid your true emotions around the stress that's involved in that. Let's see. B says, Khalto, that's why I do stand-up comedy now. I love it. First of all, I love stand-up comedy. It is my absolute self-care activity. I think stand-up comics are amazing. I'm always supporting stand-up comedy. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's like the place to go for up-and-coming comics. I absolutely love that. Yes, you're channeling that energy into your craft, and also see how it impacts when you're not doing your craft, how it impacts your relationships. Inshallah, one day I'll get to Michigan and come to your show. DM me your information. You never know. I might show up there one day. Okay, the last role is the parentified child. Now, as Arab Americans, and maybe this happens in other countries, I don't know, let me know. But as Arab Americans and as children of immigrants, we may have taken on the role of a parent because of language barriers, our parents not understanding the systems, and we were providing emotional and physical care for our young siblings while our parents went to work. Maybe we went to work at a young age. I know I started working at the age of 12 outside the home. And you may grow up feeling this over responsibility for other people. Now, this causes a significant amount of issues in your romantic partnerships with maybe your wife or your husband taking on the emotional burdens to fix everything. Now, as a parentified child, you have a sense of hyper independence. You may not trust anybody to do anything. And that's what comes to controlling behaviors. You don't trust people in your life to help you, because when you're a parentified child, you didn't have anybody to depend on. And many times as a parentified child, you were raising your parents. You were raising your parents emotionally, meaning you were taking care of their moods. You were making sure they were okay. And when you're 9 or 10, that's not appropriate to do. So many of us in Middle Eastern households, at least here living abroad, we have to take on all these roles that for our age was not appropriate. Now, where it's a good thing, if I could take a good thread from it, well, we're responsible, we're good workers, we're motivated, we have businesses, yet emotionally that can cause so much stress. So by understanding your role in your family and constantly reassessing what role, my sense is it may help you understand the dynamics within your family. So this is where you slow down. You take a look, you observe your family versus getting caught up in their swirl. Take a step back, breathe and go, what's going on here? What role am I taking? What is my accountability? Okay. Now you may be the peacemaker. That's okay. You may be the free spirit in your family. You may be the protector, the leader, the nurturer. You may take on any one of these roles. It doesn't always have to be negative, okay? It doesn't always have to be negative. But remember, if you don't have understanding of what that role is for you, it could cause a lot of issues for you. Sorry, it's confirming. I have to confirm objects here. I don't know what's happening. Mira, do you know what's going on here? Okay.
What is it telling you?
Yeah, I don't know what it's telling me, but I'm almost done here. Okay, let's, oops, hold on one second. I think they're going to cut me off here. TikTok is going to cut me off here in a minute, but I want to finish this last point. Okay, here we go. Okay, so understanding you can decide whether this role serves you or not. And if it serves you, great. And if it doesn't serve you, that's fine. In many Arab families, we may not have a choice. And I think that's what Western therapists don't understand, is that we may not have a choice to move outside of these roles. And I get that, but can you shape the role for you so that you feel more empowered instead of depleted, angry, frustrated, neglect yourself at the expense of your family system? That's the worst thing you can do, particularly if it's rigid. Now, working with a therapist may be helpful. Talking to healthy family members about this is helpful. Stephanie, you said, my husband was parentified. How do I help him move out of this space? Encourage him to go talk to somebody. Now, he may not want to talk to somebody about that. He may have an over responsibility for his family, which then puts him in a predicament to choose his family, meaning you and any children you may have, and his family. You can help him by understanding, like, okay, sweetie, this is what I get that you have this responsibility. How can I support you in that? But how can we also set some limits around that? Usually the family will be okay. They're fine because they need you more than you need them. I hate to say it like that, very bluntly, but they need you more than you need them for many of us. All right. So that's all I have today. You saw the roles, the responsibilities, how some of our family dynamics have an impact on us. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for those of you that joined in, your comments, participating in this. Let's see, some Arab families that are told for, the comment. Can you read the comments for me?
Some Arab families that are told forget their culture and accumulate to the US to be able to fit in. Acclimate, I think.
Oh yeah, acclimate. You mean to US? Like, I didn't understand the question.
I'll read it again. It's Juju the cat. They said some Arab families that are told forget their culture and acclimate to the US to be able to fit in.
Yeah, no, I think you could do both. Moving you to an Arab country, well, you adapt to whatever the environment is. But when you come from a strong cultural background, it's finding what's going to work for you, your middle ground. And I can't answer that. Only you can answer that within your own family on how much you want to assimilate or not. And it also depends on the generation. Any other questions? Anything before we head out? Thank you, everyone. This was so great to have everybody participate. I really love hearing. I love this community that we've created. Family dynamics in our Arab culture is extremely nuanced, very difficult to navigate. And this is where be kind to yourself, have compassion. Thank you, B. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, whatever you decide to do. And join me on Wednesday for Wadih Wednesday. For any questions we didn't get to today, I will answer those on Wednesday. And then I will see you next Sunday for Sitti Sunday for another topic on mental health and emotional health issues and our Middle Eastern culture. All right, you guys, take care. Have a good one. Thank you. Thank you so much.